You've made a budget before, probably more than once. Maybe you sat down with a spreadsheet on a Sunday night, feeling genuinely motivated. You categorized everything: groceries, rent, subscriptions, eating out. You set limits. You felt in control. And then by Wednesday, it was already falling apart. Sound familiar? Here's what's interesting. You're not alone, and you're not undisciplined. The data actually shows that the failure rate of traditional budgets is extraordinarily high, and the reason has almost nothing to do with willpower or math skills. The reason budgets fail is that most budgets are built on a fundamentally flawed model of how human decision-making actually works, and nobody tells you that. Instead, you blame yourself, try again with a slightly different spreadsheet, and get the same result. Today, I'm going to show you the data behind why budgets fail, the specific psychological and behavioral mechanisms at play, and the evidence-backed systems that actually produce results for people in their 20s and 30s. No motivational fluff, no oversimplified rules that ignore how real life works. Just the research, the numbers, and a framework you can actually use. Stay with me through to the end because the last system I'm going to cover, what researchers call structured flexibility, is the model that holds up best under real-world conditions. Most budget advice skips right past it. Let's get into the data. Let's start with the numbers because they're more revealing than most people realize. A study published in the Journal of Consumer Research found that when people set overly restrictive spending targets, they don't just fail to meet them. The restriction itself triggers a behavioral rebound, meaning the tighter you budget, the more likely you are to overspend in the exact categories you tried to restrict. The technical term is licensing effect. The brain interprets any small violation of a strict rule as permission to abandon the rule entirely. Think about the last time you broke your budget on a Friday night dinner. Did you think, okay, I'm a little over on dining, I'll compensate elsewhere? Or did something in your brain say, well, the week is already blown, might as well? That's not a personality flaw. That's a documented cognitive pattern called what the hell effect, first identified by researchers Janet Polivy and C. Peter Herman in studies on dietary restraint, and it maps almost perfectly onto financial behavior. A 2019 survey by Debt.com found that 80% of Americans say they keep a budget, but separate data from the Federal Reserve's report on the economic well-being of U.S. households consistently shows that a significant portion of Americans couldn't cover an unexpected $400 expense without borrowing or selling something. Those two data points don't add up, unless the budgets aren't actually working. Here's what's going on. There's a massive difference between making a budget and running a functioning financial system. Most people are doing the first one and calling it the second. A budget is a plan. A financial system is a set of automated structures and behavioral guardrails that produce consistent outcomes regardless of your mood, your stress level, or whether it's been a rough week. The research is clear that systems outperform plans in almost every domain of human behavior, and financial life is no exception. So let's break down exactly why the traditional budget model fails before we talk about what replaces it. This isn't about discipline. These are structural design flaws in the traditional budgeting approach itself. Reason 1, budgets require daily active decision-making, and decision fatigue is real. A landmark study by researchers at Columbia University and Ben-Gurion University analyzing judicial decisions found that judges made significantly worse decisions as the day went on, not because they were less intelligent later, but because the cognitive load of repeated decisions depletes a finite resource. The same thing happens with your finances. Every day you have to actively decide whether to spend money and check it against a budget. You're burning cognitive bandwidth. By Thursday evening after a full week work, your prefrontal cortex, the rational decision-making center, is running on empty. That's exactly when budget violations happen. Traditional budgeting puts the highest cognitive demand on the moments when you have the least capacity to meet it. Reason 2, budgets are built on estimated averages, but life is not average. When you build a budget, you estimate. You guess what groceries will cost, what your electricity bill will be, how much you'll spend on gas. You work with averages. But actual spending is not average. It's lumpy. Some months your car needs a repair.
Some months there's a wedding, a flight, a medical bill. Some months your utility bill doubles in winter. A static budget cannot handle a 30% spending swing. It just can't. And when it breaks, people assume they broke it. Reason 3, budgets don't account for the psychology of categories. Traditional budgets divide spending into categories: groceries, entertainment, transportation, dining out. But these categories don't match how people actually experience spending decisions. When you're standing at Trader Joe's on a Saturday and you grab a nice bottle of wine, is that groceries or entertainment? When you get coffee during your commute, is that dining out or transportation? Category ambiguity creates constant microfriction, and every moment of friction is a moment where the system can break down. Beyond the ambiguity, there's another problem. Research in behavioral economics and consumer psychology, including work by Elizabeth Dunn at the University of British Columbia, shows that spending satisfaction is primarily not determined by how much you spend. It's determined by how closely your spending aligns with your stated values. People who spend money on experiences they care about, people they love, or causes they believe in, report higher financial satisfaction than people who spend more money on things that don't align with their values, even when the dollar amounts are identical. This matters for budgeting because it reframes the entire goal. The goal isn't to spend less. The goal is to spend in alignment with what actually matters to you and eliminate spending on things that don't. In practical terms, this means identifying your 2 or 3 genuine financial priorities, whether that's travel, health, building wealth, buying a home, financial independence, and structuring your spending system so those things are fully funded first. Everything else gets whatever's remaining. This approach produces less guilt, more financial satisfaction, and higher long-term compliance than restriction-based budgeting because it's built on pursuing something rather than avoiding something.
Now let's put it all together into the system I mentioned at the start: structured flexibility. This is not a single technique. It's a model that combines the 3 evidence-backed approaches into one integrated system designed specifically for the income patterns, lifestyle variability, and psychological realities of people in their 20s and 30s. Here's how it works across 4 layers. Layer 1, the automation layer. On the day your paycheck lands, automatic transfers move predetermined amounts to 3 places before you interact with the money at all. First, your retirement account. If your employer offers a 401k match, you contribute at minimum enough to capture the full match, because that match is an immediate 50 to 100% return on that dollar, which no other investment can touch. Beyond the match, target a total retirement contribution of 10 to 15% of gross income. Second, your emergency fund until it reaches 3 to 6 months of essential expenses. After that, redirect this automation to a brokerage account or other savings goal. Third, any specific goal savings, a down payment, a planned trip, a car replacement fund. Automated, fixed, happens without you making a decision. Everything that remains after these automatic transfers is your actual spending money for the month. This is not what's left after you try to save. This is the deliberate remainder after your future is already funded. Layer 2, the fixed costs layer. From your spending money, your fixed costs come out. Rent or mortgage, utilities, insurance, loan payments, subscriptions. These are non-negotiable and predictable. The key data point here, research consistently shows that keeping fixed costs below 50% of take-home pay produces significantly more financial flexibility and resilience than allowing fixed costs to creep above that threshold. Every time you increase a fixed cost, upgrade your apartment, add a car payment, add a subscription, you permanently reduce your flexibility. Fixed costs are the single most underestimated lever in personal finance. Layer 3, the flexible spending layer. What remains after automation and fixed costs is your flexible spending. Groceries, dining, transportation, entertainment, clothing, personal care, everything discretionary. Here's the key behavioral shift. Instead of tracking this spending by category, you track it as a single number. You have a monthly flexible spending number, let's say it's $1,400. You track how much of that number you've used and how much remains. That's it. No category subdivisions, no guilt about whether the wine was groceries or entertainment, just one number, one simple running total. Research in behavioral economics supports this approach.
Simplifying financial tracking to fewer variables reduces cognitive load, reduces decision fatigue, and increases long-term compliance. The granular category tracking of traditional budgeting creates friction without meaningfully improving outcomes. You can use a simple notes app, a debit card with a spending tracker, or one of the many free personal finance tools available, but the only metric that matters is how much of my flexible number is left this month. Layer 4, the irregular expense buffer. This is the layer most budgets completely skip, and it's one of the primary reasons they fail. Remember the JP Morgan data showing 30+% monthly spending swings? The culprit is irregular expenses. Car maintenance, medical copays, home repairs, travel, gifts, annual fees billed once a year. These are not surprises. They're predictable, irregular expenses. The problem is that traditional monthly budgets don't accommodate them. The fix is simple and backed by basic financial planning research. Add up all your irregular annual expenses, everything that doesn't hit every month, divide by 12, automate that amount monthly into a dedicated savings account called something specific, like irregular expenses or life happens fund. When the car needs tires, when the dentist sends a bill, when flights are booked, you pull from that account. The money is already there. The budget doesn't break. The psychological spiral doesn't start. A commonly cited target for young professionals is $150 to $300 per month into this buffer, depending on your lifestyle and life stage. Over 12 months, that's $1,800 to $3,600 sitting ready for the real expenses that a static monthly budget pretends don't exist. Let's run through a concrete example so this stops being abstract. Assume a 28-year-old professional in a mid-cost U.S. city with a take-home income of $5,000 per month after taxes. Automation layer, 401k contribution, already deducted pre-tax, assume $400 per month to hit employer match. Emergency fund or investment automation, $500 per month. Goal savings, $200 per month. Total automated, $1,100 per month. Remaining after automation, $3,900. Fixed costs. Rent, $1,400. Utilities and internet, $150. Car insurance and phone, $200. Subscriptions, $50. Total fixed, $1,800. Fixed costs as a percentage of take-home, 36%, below the 50% threshold. Good position. Remaining after fixed costs, $2,100. Irregular expense buffer, $200 per month automated to a separate account. Flexible spending number, $1,900 per month. That $1,900 covers groceries, dining, gas, entertainment, clothing, personal care, everything. No category breakdown required. Just one number. When it runs out, you're done for the month. When there's money left, it rolls forward or goes to savings. Is $1,900 generous? It depends on your city and lifestyle. The point isn't the exact number, it's the architecture. The future is funded first, fixed costs are controlled, irregular expenses are absorbed, what's left is yours to spend guilt-free without tracking 14 subcategories. That's a functional financial system. Not a budget, a system. Building the system is only half the equation. The research on habit formation and financial behavior change shows that systems require maintenance, not constant monitoring, but periodic review. Here's what the data supports for long-term compliance. A monthly 20-minute financial review, not a daily check-in, not a weekly deep dive, one 20-minute session per month where you look at three things. Did the automations run correctly? Where does the flexible spending number stand? Are there any fixed costs that should be adjusted? That's it. 20 minutes once a month to maintain a system that runs on its own the rest of the time. Research from behavioral economist Shlomo Benartzi on automatic savings programs shows that set and review approaches dramatically outperform set and forget because periodic reviews allow for real-life adjustments, income changes, new financial goals, life events, without requiring the constant vigilance that burns people out. The review is not about judgment, it's about calibration. You're checking whether the system still fits your life, not grading your behavior. One additional behavioral tool supported by research is what psychologists call implementation intentions, the practice of pre-deciding responses to specific situations. For example, if a restaurant bill comes in over my flexible spending limit, I will move the excess from next month's flexible number, not from savings. Or, if I receive a bonus, I will put 50% towards investments and use 50% as I choose. Pre-committing these responses in advance before the situation arises dramatically increases follow-through compared to making the decision in the moment. Write them down, put them somewhere visible. They become the operating rules of your personal financial system. Here's a concrete sequence, not a 30-step plan, 4 steps in order this week. Step 1, calculate your actual take-home monthly income, not gross, what hits your account. Step 2, list your fixed costs and total them. Calculate what percentage of take-home they represent. If it's above 50%, that is the single highest leverage thing to address, even before you optimize anything else. Step 3, add up every irregular expense you had last year. Car repairs, medical bills, travel, gifts, annual fees, everything. Divide by 12, set up an automatic monthly transfer of that amount to a separate savings account starting with your next paycheck. Step 4, set your automation. Whatever percentage of income you can automate to savings and investments starting now, even if it's 5%, automate it. You can increase it later. Starting small beats not starting. Those 4 steps don't require a perfect budget. They don't require a spreadsheet with 30 categories. They require 4 decisions made once that run automatically and compound in your favor every single month going forward. Here's the actual takeaway from everything we covered today. Budgets fail not because you're bad at money, but because traditional budget design conflicts with how human decision-making actually works. The research is consistent on this. Willpower is finite, categories are psychologically messy, life is not average, and restriction without allocation is not a sustainable system. What works is automation, simplification, and structural design that moves your most important financial decisions out of the moment of temptation and into a calm, rational, pre-committed framework. You don't need more discipline, you need a better system. If this breakdown was useful, hit the like button. It helps this channel reach more people who could use a data-driven approach to money. Subscribe to Finance Tips Decoded for more analysis that goes past the surface and into the actual mechanics of why financial decisions succeed or fail. And drop a comment below. I want to know, have you tried budgeting before and hit one of the failure modes I described today? Which one resonated most? See you in the next one.